Hi everyone, welcome to Enjoy English School. I'm Steven.
大家好，我是 Bernice 老师。
Today's date is April 26th, and today and tomorrow we're going to be covering pages 54 to 57 with culture.
我们今天要来讲的是文化之窗的英文。
All right, the title today is Hip Hop. So much more than music.
Hip Hop 来了，我老师不太会跳舞。
你刚刚在跳 Hip Hop
我刚刚在乱扭一下而已。好，我们今天要讲的是嘻哈文化。那么嘻哈文化呢，它不是仅仅只是跟音乐有关哦。
Hip hop is a global phenomenon that started as an underground counterculture.
我们知道这个嘻哈呢，其实啊，它是一个全球的 global， 就是全球性的，好这样的一个现象。而且呢，它已经开始了，用一个什么样的方式开始呢？它是属于一种 underground， 在地下的这种逆主流的一个文化。
Let's get started.
好的。
So for the first day, please refer to pages 54 to 55. The term hip-hop usually refers to music, but it is so much more than that.
这个 term 呢，就是我们讲的一个专有的一个词汇。那现在我们在讲这个专有词汇就是 hip hop， 我们今天的主题。他说通常呢 refers to， 我们知道 refer to 就是 mean M-E-A-N， 就是意思呢，其实它就是指的就是音乐的意思。可是呢，到了现在呢，它不是只有 so much more than， 就超越了，意思就是说不是只有我们讲的 music 这个东西了。
Right, and also the word term, another word you could use is word, W-O-R-D. The word hip-hop usually refers to music. Hip-hop is a cultural movement that can be traced back to the Bronx, New York City in the early 1970s.
接下来我们来讲它的历史。他说，其实呢 ，hip hop 它是一种文化上面的一种运动。那这个运动呢 ，that 用这个冠带来形容这个 movement。这个运动呢，其实可以追溯回去到1970年代，那个时候早期呢，纽约的一个城市叫做布朗克斯区。
Right, and also here we see be traced back to. You could also say dates back to. So this cultural movement dates back to the Bronx, New York City in the early 1970s. Or you could even say it goes back to the Bronx, New York City in the early 1970s. These are different ways to say the same thing.
对，这刚才那几个片语呢，都是指追溯回去，往后面追溯的意思。
Right, and also Bronx and New York City, there has to be a comma to separate these two words. Well, Bronx is a section in New York City. Okay, it's a region in New York City, and New York City is the city itself. So in order for people to know that the Bronx is part of New York City, we have to put a comma when we're writing it.
那个逗点的意思就是说，前面呢就是它属于 New York City 是一个大的城市，前面是它属于它的一个部分一个区块，所以呢我们加了逗点把它隔开来。
It served as a way for certain underrepresented groups like African Americans and Hispanic Americans to express themselves through a uniquely modern art form.
这个句子有点长了。他说那个 it 当然就是指这个 hip hop。他说这个 hip hop 其实呢，它是用一种什么样的方式 serve as a way for， 就是为了什么东西去用一种这样的一个方式。它主要呢是对于某些underrepresented， 同学我们知道这个 represent 本来就是代表，under 就是表示你没有那么样可以充分的代表，所以我们就把它翻译成呢没有办法未被充分代表的一些团体，例如呢后面就是它的这些团体的名称。那为什么他们是 underrepresented？ 因为它主要是要表达他们自己，然后呢，透过一种比较特殊的一个与众不同的现代感的这个艺术的形式来表现。
And underrepresented groups, another way you could say that is minority groups. Okay, M-I-N-O-R-T-Y. That's anybody in a group of people who are not the majority. Okay, if you want to talk about Taiwan, a lot of indigenous people, 原住民, are minorities. They're underrepresented groups in Taiwan, okay, or even immigrants from, let's say, Vietnam or from different other countries that come to live here, they are also considered underrepresented groups. So in America, African Americans or Black people and Hispanic Americans, and anyone from who's Hispanic American is someone who is from Spanish descent. That can be from South America, it can be from Spain, okay, it can be from any of these places that speak Spanish. Those are people who are Hispanic Americans.
对，所以老师的意思就是说呢，他们是指这些比较少数的这些族群。那比如说以台湾来讲，可能原住民呢就是属于这种少数族群了。那接下来呢，如果在美国的话，就是像老师刚才讲，比如说黑人的族群啦，或者是这个非裔的啦，或者是西班牙这边的美国人呢，那或者是移民到美国来的，这些我们就称之为这个 underrepresented groups.
Okay, and also what is an art form? A form is a particular way in which something exists or appears. Okay, so it's just a way of modern art, a way of expressing this modern art.
我们讲这个 form 原本是一个形式，那也就是表示你呈现某一个东西的一个方法。
And also in America, a lot of people argue when you see a Black person, you can say that they're Black. So some people used to think this was offensive.
对。
But actually, a lot of Black people find African American to be offensive because not every Black person is from Africa.
Yeah,
some
that's
people
true.
might be from Jamaica. Okay, or they
没错。
could be from different countries that they have black skin. They have black skin, but it doesn't mean that they're from Africa. So it's actually more politically correct to say Black.
OK， 好，所以下次你在美国看到的黑人，你不要直接就说人家是 African American，可能他并不是从 Africa 这边来的。
Right. All right, let's take a short break.
好的。
Hip-hop culture is based on 4 forms of expression: DJing, rapping, graffiti, and breakdancing.
接下来我们来介绍呢 ，hip hop 总共有哪一些的种类？所以他这边讲了 hip hop 的 culture 呢，它的文化呢，其实是以什么为基础 ？Be based on 就是用什么来作为基础？总共有下面4种的这个表现的一个形式。第一种我们称之为 DJ， 第二种呢，我们就是饶舌。第3种是街头的涂鸦式，第4种就是霹雳舞。
Right, so DJing, this is spelled out D-E-E-J-A-Y-I-N-G. A lot of times you might see capital D, capital J-I-N-G. So that's acceptable as well. And breakdancing, another way we say that is just breaking, okay, and breaking.
对。
All of these aspects of hip-hop have become art forms by themselves.
刚才我们提到的这4种不同的这些 hip hop 的这一个方面呢 ，aspect 就是它的这样的一个形式哈，这样的一方面，其实呢都已经他们变成他们自己自成一派的，因为它是 by themselves，已经像自成一派的一种艺术形式了。
Right, that means that they've become so popular and so significant and important that they have become cultures by themselves. They're not just part of hip-hop anymore.
对。
DJing involves mixing and sampling music to create original music.
好，那现在我们就来分门别类来介绍这4种不同的表演形式。第一种呢 ，DJ， 它这个东西是包含了 mixing， 就是你要有混音的这个东西，还有呢，你要有 sampling。sampling 在这边是指呢音乐的截录某一段出来，所以呢，它是说，截取某个部分的音乐来做这个创作，然后可以创造出呢，把原本的那个 original 原本的音乐去做这样的混音的这个结合，或者是截取部分音乐来创造出来的。
Right, very nicely said.
Thank you.
Sampling music is when you take a portion of another song and then you put it into another song, like or your own song, and then create a whole new song.
没错。
So some people might recognize that portion of like a really classic song, but also now it's in a new song, so it has like a new, different feel. Okay. Rapping involves rhythmic spoken word performances, often over the top of a DJ's music.
好，再来接下来呢，就是这个饶舌了。饶舌就比如说同学看到很多，有时候在电视上面有一些黑人呢在表演这个舌头都打在一起的这一种。
现在不只是黑人，现在 很多人就是有那个 hip hop，
对，我就不
对
会。OK， 他说这种饶舌呢，它主要是在讲什么呢？他说主要是说呢，它是一种比较有节奏感的，这样的一种感觉。然后它当然是一种 spoken word， 你要把这个话呢说出来，所以它是一种口头的表演。那通常呢，你会发觉 DJ 的这个音乐呢，感觉就是这个饶舌的乐手，他就是随着那个音乐，就可以把他的这些歌词念出来，或者是他的节奏感做出来了。
Right, and also we use over the top of a DJ's music. It's because unlike singing, where you're kind of mixing with the music,
对
you know, you're going along with the melody line and the harmony of the music. Rapping, you're kind of, you know, doing your own thing. Okay, you're not going with the melody. You're kind of going with the rhythm of the music. So the concept is the music is playing, that is being played by the DJ, and the rapping kind of goes on top of the music. It's not really blending with the music. So that's why we say over the top of a DJ's music.
对，所以这个片语我们用在这边呢，主要是因为呢，比如说我们在唱歌，我们是要跟着这个歌曲的这个节奏呢，然后整个要混合在一起的。但是呢，如果你是在做 rap 的时候呢，其实你并没有完全的跟随这个歌曲的节奏，而是你有自己的那个节奏感，你抓住那个节奏感，所以要很有经验的，所以我们才会用到那个 over 的感觉。对。
Graffiti is a more visual art form that involves street art, typically using spray paint with a concrete wall as canvas.
那么第三种呢，我们讲的就是涂鸦了。涂鸦呢，他说是一种比较有视觉的感觉 ，visual 就是你眼睛这样子看出去的一个艺术的形式。那么这样的一个形式里面，它包括的就是说，街头的一个艺术，比如说你有时候走在街头，美国的街头，你会看到那个墙壁上面很多人在上面写字啊，或者是画图啊这样子哈。那通常呢 ，typically 就是很典型的、很代表性的，他们通常就是第一个你要拿那个喷漆。这样子哈，然后接下来他用这个喷在什么地方呢？放在一些这个水泥墙的喷在这个上面，来当做为什么要喷在水泥墙？因为他把水泥墙整片当做他的 canvas， 就是他的那个画布。
All right, so usually canvases are like what we use when we're painting, right? That cloth that we paint on. But now for graffiti, the whole wall, the whole concrete wall is your canvas. Now, graffiti has had kind of a bad rep for many years. Rep, R-E-P, is the short word for reputation. And the reason for that is because, like we said in the beginning with hip-hop culture, this was considered to be a counterculture, okay? So a lot of times in the past when people were doing graffiti on walls, they would spray a lot of messages that were kind of fighting against a lot of main cultures or a lot of issues that they were not happy about. So some people might find it offensive, but to the people who were doing the graffiti, it was a way of expressing how they felt about how they were not being represented.
对，所以他这边呢，我们讲到这个涂鸦，本来呢，在就是美国人他们当地人可能会觉得说这是一个不好的名，就是他觉得这是不好，你们在上面随便乱涂啦，或者是有时候你表现出来的那些讯息，其实在反一些主流的部分，所以呢，会让人家觉得说这个好像是不好的，但其实他们只是表现一个艺术，然后要为他们自己做一个发声的动作。
Exactly. Then there is breakdancing or b-boying, which involves acrobatic dance paired with hip-hop music.
好，接下来呢，第四个呢，就是讲到这个霹雳舞了。他说霹雳舞是什么东西？就我们讲的 breaking， 就是反正感觉你骨头快断掉那个感觉。好，或者我们把它称之为这个 b-boying。他说其实呢，它就是呢，包括了怎么样，你要有一些特技表演。好，那比较特技的这种表演跳舞的这个动作，然后并且你要搭配 paired with，pair 我们知道是成双成对嘛，所以你就是要跟它做一个搭配或配对，配对跟谁来做搭配的？当然就是 hip hop 的音乐了。
Right, and sometimes we call break dancers, we call them b-boys, or if they're a female, b-girls, because a lot of females do break dancing now too. Now earlier I said we could call it breaking. If you said breaking, people would know what you're talking about, but I think breaking is something I hear in Taiwan more.
对对对，没错。
Okay, so what are acrobatic dance moves? Acrobatic, this adjective, it means something that is performed with spectacular gymnastic moves. Okay, so usually they're very difficult difficult to do moves and you need to do a lot of practicing.
对对对，就是说你的体力上面啊，你的那个表演是比较特技一点的，所以会比较累的。
Right, so this paired with hip-hop music, you could also say along with hip-hop music. So this involves acrobatic dance along with hip-hop music. This is acceptable as well. In addition to all of these, fashion is also a big part of hip-hop.
除了 in addition to 就除了刚才上面讲到这4种不同的这个表演艺术 hip hop 的 culture 之外呢 ，fashion 这个东西就是你要很流行、很时尚这个感觉呢，也同时呢是在 hip hop 里面一个非常重要的一大部分，就是一个很重要的组成部分。
Sportswear is common in hip-hop culture since team logos are used to represent cities and their local hip-hop scenes.
对，比如说呢，他就是讲了，你要穿运动装来跳舞嘛。好，他说你穿这个运动装呢是非常常见的，在这个 hip hop 的文化里面，因为呢，这些他们所谓的队徽呢，好是被用来代表 represent， 就是做一个代表这个城市，比如说你是什么什么城市出来的这样的一个队，然后呢，以及呢代表他们当地的 hip hop 的一个这个 scene， 这边的 scene 呢就是指它的这个圈子，它这个hip hop 的这个领域里面，所以呢，这时候呢，你会发觉，他们的运动服装上面都会有不同的这个 logo 在上面。
Right. So if you can think like basketball, so basketball usually they have a jersey, Jersey, which is like the kind of it's like a tank top, that kind of shirt that you wear for basketball. It's sleeveless. I think you know what I'm talking about. But usually on these jerseys or these tank tops, they'll have a team logo. So the logo is like a picture, and on that picture it will show like what their team name is. For instance, the Houston Rockets, okay, or the LA Lakers. Okay, these are team logos. So if you're wearing a shirt with the LA Lakers, people know you're from LA.
对。
And you're representing LA. Or if you're wearing the Houston, the team logo on your shirt, then people will know you're from Texas. You're from the Houston scene.
对，所以如果常常看 NBA 的同学应该都知道，他们那个球衣上面这种无袖的嘛，它上面都会有他们的那个 logo， 那就代表你是哪一个城市所派出来的这个代表的队伍。
Okay, let's take a short break.
好的。
So, while hip-hop is very much rooted in music, it includes many other aspects as well.
所以呢，因此呢，尽管呢，这个 hip hop 呢 ，while 就是虽然尽管 hip hop 呢，其实呢，它已经深深的根植在这个音乐里面，意思就是说它的根基就一定要有音乐，你没有音乐，你怎么跳这些动作呢？对不对？难不成你自己唱吗？不可能的。可是呢，其实它还包含了许许多多其他的层面，这边的 as well 就是 to 也这样子。
So this be rooted in something is the same thing as saying to be based in something, which is what we saw in the second paragraph. Hip-hop culture is based on 4 forms of expression. So these are just 2 different ways to say the same thing. Is rooted in, you can imagine like a plant that has roots,
那个
right?
根部。
根部是在那个部分, okay? Although it began as a small subculture, today hip-hop is a huge cultural force influencing popular music and fashion across the world.
虽然呢，我们知道这个嘻哈文化，它一开始的时候呢，它是以一种比较小规模的一种次文化，同学我们看到这个 sub 在头的时候呢，就是表示次要的，好，它是一个次文化，然后规模很小。但是呢，到了现在呢，我们看到这些 hip hop 已经变成了一种怎么样非常庞大的一种文化的 force， 就是一种 power， 一个力量。而且这个力量呢，会 which influences， 所以这边的 influence 我们变成分词构句，变成一个 ing 了。它可以影响这些所谓的这个流行时尚，甚至呢还有一些这个 fashion， 就是时尚的部分，在全世界。
All right, so across the world, you could also say all around the world. Okay, let's go to the review.
好的。
All right, Bernice 老师, when we say something is underground, what do we mean?
就是在地底下的。
Okay, so that can actually mean literally underground.
对，真的。
Right? But it can also just mean like figuratively underground.
对
意思上的 underground. Like underground music. Okay. So what do I mean when I say this refers to this? A refers to
这个东西的意思就是指下面这个东西。
Okay. And when I say that something can be traced back to a time period, what does that mean?
如果我们要讲到比如说以前的历史，这时候我们就会说啊，我们会把这个事情回溯到什么时候。
You can also say goes back to this time period or dates back to this time period. Who are Hispanic people?
就是讲到这个西班牙人。
And who are people who are underrepresented?
就是说他是在这个国家里面呢比较位具代表性，就是他比较少数族群这样子。
Another word again is minority. Okay. What are aspects of this hip hop culture?
就是我们讲他的某方面。
Okay, and when we are rapping, you need to have good rhythm, and the adjective is rhythmic. What does that mean?
有节奏感的。
Yes. And what is the hip hop scene? 这个 scene 是什么意思？
它原本就是指在这个圈子，他们这一届，他们这个领域里面。
Okay, and when I say that something is rooted in something, what does that mean?
原本就是指呢生根深植在，所以就是以什么作为根基。
What is a subculture?
讲到次文化，
Okay, and what does it mean to influence other people?
我们可以影响大家。
Very nice. Tomorrow we'll be continuing with this topic, so we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
拜。
第54页，文化之窗，嘻哈文化绝对不只是音乐而已。
Hip-hop, so much more than music. The term hip-hop usually refers to music, but it is so much more than that. Hip-hop is a cultural movement that can be traced back to the Bronx, New York City, in the early 1970s. It served as a way for certain underrepresented groups, like African Americans and Hispanic Americans, to express themselves through a uniquely modern art form. Hip-hop culture is based on 4 forms of expression: DJing, rapping, graffiti, and breakdancing. All of these aspects of hip-hop have become art forms by themselves. DJing involves mixing and sampling music to create original music. Rapping involves rhythmic spoken word performances, often over the top of a DJ's music. Graffiti is a more visual art form that involves street art, typically using spray paint with a concrete wall as canvas. Then there is breakdancing, or b-boying, which involves acrobatic dance paired with hip-hop music. In addition to all of these, fashion is also a big part of hip-hop. Sportswear is common in hip-hop culture since team logos are used to represent cities and their local hip-hop scenes. So, while hip-hop is very much rooted in music, it includes many other aspects as well. Although it began as a small subculture, today hip-hop is a huge cultural force influencing popular music and fashion across the world.